So, what we're going to do is work on our negative character traits, but a few prerequisites. Number one, you've got to realize you're a pretty good person. You're actually okay. You make big mistakes, and sometimes you're really not nice, and you're a little bit arrogant and vain, or the opposite. You have a bit of low self-esteem, and you put people down, and you do lots of things you shouldn't do. But in general, you're not really openly, maliciously evil people. I don't think. I don't know you that well. Maybe one of you, I think. But you're all right. That's the first thing. The second thing is, you have to see character traits do not define you. They're not actually who you are. So many people come up to me and they say things like, Rabbi, I hate myself. And I'm like, well, yeah, if I were you, I'd hate myself too. I don't. I don't say that, but I sometimes do think that. No, I don't. I never think that, because I love people unconditionally. So like, Rabbi, I hate myself. So I'm like, oh my goodness, why do you hate yourself? And they say, because I get really annoyed with my mum when she says that, and I'm really lazy, and I don't do what I'm meant to do, and all these things. And so I say to them, well, you're going to have children one day, and when your children are lazy, or they have bad character traits, are you going to hate your children for their bad character traits? And they're like, no. I say, good, so if you're not going to hate your children for their bad character traits, don't hate yourself for your bad character traits. And then I say to them, now, why won't you hate your children for the bad character traits? And they'll say, because that's not who they are. They're good people. They just got bad character traits. I say, exactly, that's not who you are. So you have to see stop identifying it as them, and see your bad character traits as just challenges that you have to overcome. It's literally like a disease. If you have a disease, then you have to take medicine and cure the disease. So anger, jealousy, doubt, fear, anxiety, hatred, they're just little diseases that you're dealing with. They're not who you are. Very, very important to stop identifying as negative character traits, or anything, by the way. I was just speaking to someone, and he's been clean for 3 years, but he's like, I am an alcoholic, and I've been clean for 3 years. And I said to him, you've done AA? And he's yeah, I love AA. And I said, I love AA as well, actually. 12 steps is amazing. It's all about Hashem. It's amazing. There's just one thing I don't like about AA, and that's the first line they make you say. Oh, well, know what? Is half of the first line they make you say. AA, they make you say, I am an alcoholic, and I'm powerless to deal with it, whatever it is. And I said to him, you're not an alcoholic. You're a soul. You're a perfectly pure, connected, radiant being of divine light. And I'm totally powerless with I'm okay with the after that. But as soon as you identify as something, then you're sticking it in there. Very, very hard to change. So people come up to me and say, I'm a high anxiety person. I'm like, no, you're not. You're a radiant, shining being of divine light who is struggling with anxious thoughts. And this is how you deal with it. So the very first thing is get some distance. Objectify negative character traits rather than identify with them. And then you can actually work with them. Now, I can say, that's not who I am. And people, once you resign yourself, this is who I am, this is who I've always been, it's very, very hard to change. But when you don't resign yourself to that, or surrender to that, and say, this is a challenge that I'm going to work on, and spiritually speaking, we actually say those challenges are the exact ones you need in order to self-actualize. So you're going to get tested in that area again and again and again. We even say, on a very high level, maybe your soul came down into this world just to deal with anger. You're a perfect tzaddik. In your last life you were doing everything, but you just had this anger problem. So your soul comes back down again to try and clear up anger, and that's what you're here for. So we actually start seeing it as part of our journey. It's not b'diavad. How do you say b'diavad? It's not b'diavad. Not ideal. It's not ideal. It's part of the game. So you've really got to start seeing your character traits as one of the reasons you're here. Many of our sages teach that really the purpose of life is to improve your character traits. They've been given to you and you're going to overcome them. So lots of people basically become a slave to their nature and their nurture. They say, I was just born, some people are born more chilled out, and some people are born more high anxiety. And some people are born with terrible childhoods and abuse, and some people are really spoiled. So you have your nature, how you were born, and you have your nurture, how you were raised. And you could then just say, well, this is who I am, and be a victim to that, and say, well, that's who I am. And it's not true. Because maybe your whole path of self-actualization is to not be a slave to your nature and nurture, to literally overcome it. Say, This doesn't define me at all. This is my challenge in life. Very, very important way to approach this. That doesn't mean you'll overcome it straight away, but it actually gives you something empowering, an empowering way to face these things. For other people, though, you should never say, well, God just made me like this. God just made me an angry person. There's nothing I can do about it. You never take that excuse for yourself. For other people, though, always give them that excuse. Not to abuse you, by the way, but if someone gets angry, just say, well, it's not their fault. That's how Hashem made them. So you always judge other people favorably like that, but don't justify your not becoming great by saying, well, this is what I have. Because it's through this that you become great. Great? So we understand that. So I'm going to give you 3 methods to work on your character traits. Just very quickly, how do you say character trait in Hebrew? Midah. So midot. What does midah actually mean? It means a measure.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Midah. Limdod.
It's almost the same.
Oh, yeah. So limdod means to measure something, a midah. So this is how we see it. If you have one jealous thought a month, you have the trait of jealousy. We'd say, not really. One jealous thought a month, really? It's not called jealousy. Now, I don't know what the measure is, but if you have 10 jealous thoughts a day, you definitely do, and I think there's probably a scale. So you can know your character traits, become aware of your negative character traits by what are you dealing with the whole time? Are you vain and arrogant, or do you have low self-esteem, and are you really, really worried what other people think of you? Which is 2 ends of the same spectrum, by the way. Do you get angry quickly? Do you get impatient? Do you feel guilty a lot? You just got to start becoming aware of what traits keep showing up. And how do traits show up? Through thoughts. That's it. If you have lots of jealous thoughts, that creates an experience called jealousy. Your thoughts create your emotions. So you've got to see, how often do I feel jealous? How often do I feel angry? How often do I feel confused? How often do I feel bad about myself? How often do I judge other people? How often do I be lazy? How often... Just start becoming aware. Bad, very, very important, without then feeling bad about yourself. That's what I was saying before. If you write a list now of 5 bad character traits, don't feel bad about yourself. In fact, you should feel the opposite. You should say, amazing. I'm now aware of what's wrong with me. I'm such a selfish, anxious, arrogant. Hooray! But you don't say, I am these things. You are not those things. You say, I have jealousy. I have anger. Tengo hambre.
Yeah.
I have hunger.
In Hebrew, does it
Doesn't
identify like the same way as English?
Yeah.
Like English identifies a lot with it.
Ani rayev. I am hungry.
Yeah.
But really, you're not hungry.
Yeah.
Your body is hungry. Unless you want to do a mitzvah, then you can say, I'm hungry. But in general, for you, don't say, you're going to write a list of bad character traits, don't say, I am a jealous person. I say, I have jealousy to deal with. Just like you don't say, I am COVID. You say, I have COVID, and I'm going to deal with it. And by the way, if you do, get out the room right now. So fine, here are your 3 techniques for dealing with negative character traits. Having identified them, but not identified with them. Number 1, yes?
What sources is this all based on? Is this just based on?
General Orchot Tzadikim, lots of, I can send you lots of Torah sources with this. But it's obvious, actually. There's something in the Gemara that says, Lama likra sfarahu. I don't need a source, it's obvious, basically. The Gemara says it often. Okay, so number 1, I call it create a state. Create a state. So this is how you do it. It's a little bit more complicated, and really the first 2 are very, very related to each other. Create a state is, you have to become very aware of that when that negative character trait is triggered. So you know when you see that person, you're going to want to kill them. You're going to get frustrated. Or you know when you go on social media and you see your ex-girlfriend, you know you're going to freak out. Or you know or when you're stuck in a traffic jam, you know what's going to happen. So basically, become aware of your triggers. Very, very aware of triggers. If you can avoid the trigger, by the way, do. Like, try to leave earlier so you don't get stuck in a traffic jam. don't look at your ex-girlfriend's social media. Like, there's no reason to challenge yourself by putting yourself in. It's like a recovering alcoholic going to a bar and saying, you know what, I'm going to a bar to just don't go to the bar. I think maybe there might be some point in your growth where you're like, but in general you don't want to. But lots of your triggers you can't avoid. They're just going to happen. So what you've got to do is, this is how you create a state. Think about how you feel when you see that person and really feel, try and bring up that feeling. I feel so frustrated. What am I thinking? How am I breathing? How am I standing? What do I want to do? And you really get yourself into that state that you get in. And then you do this. You create a new state, which is, think, if I was living at my highest conscious level, how would I be thinking, breathing, standing? What would I be doing in that moment? And start just playing it out. So you're sitting in that traffic jam, you're late for whatever it is, and you put on nice music. And you're saying to yourself, you know what? Getting frustrated isn't going to change anything. I'm going to talk about emotional balance in a week from now, but if you need to scream once, do that. But then think of yourself. Nice music, I'll get there when I get there. Feel how you're breathing now. So you're pictured in the car, you're in the traffic jam, you're playing Zusha music, you're breathing through your nose, you're loosening your neck and shoulders, and you're saying to yourself, you know what, I'll get there when I get there. It's going to be okay. Or put yourself in front of your boss, who you usually get really upset with, and see yourself, you're breathing, or your parents who are pressuring you. You've got to live in the real world, you know. So what are you saying to them? You're saying, thank you so much for caring about me. I really appreciate it. Now, the more you can play it out, the more you can practice it, the more you're basically retuning your trigger. You're retuning your trigger. This is how martial arts works. This is how anything works. Tony Robbins used to do this with top athletes. I've forgotten who the athlete was, but he was a top guy. He won the 100 meters, won everything. And then he went really bad for a year, came to Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins said, look, tell me everything you did on the day you won the gold medal in the Olympic Games. What time did you wake up? What music did you listen to? What did you eat? And he said, just do that again. The same music, the same this, and also you got to, when the gun goes, what's going on? And he became the best again. That's called creating a state. So Tony Robbins is a good source for this. Yeah, create a state. This, by the way, you can do for your alarm in the morning. If you fall asleep dreading the alarm and saying, I can't get up, when the alarm goes off, that will mess you up. Fall asleep saying, I actually can't wait for the alarm to go off. Even if you have to give yourself an incentive. I'll get to have my coffee or whatever. Give yourself an incentive. You fall asleep looking forward to the alarm. It goes off, then you've now created that state. So that's the first thing. Imagine how you would be if you were being the best you. And it won't work all the time, but it will, sometimes. The second method for improving your character traits is called the test. This does come from the Mesilisha Sharim. It's very, very similar, but it's just a general attitude to life. We see any of the triggers in our life as a test to make us great. That's an amazing approach to it, because then you're not a victim. Usually we take these bad, difficult circumstances in our life and we say, it's not fair, I wish it wasn't like this, why me, all of that. Now you're doing the opposite. You're saying, I'm almost looking forward to these things because these are my opportunities to grow. I want that. If you play tennis and you play against someone who can't play at all, you're not growing. In fact, it's quite annoying sometimes to play with someone who can't play. If you play someone who's far too good for you, that's also annoying. You're not going to hit the ball. You've got to play someone who's a little bit better than you, who's pushing you. So you see life literally as life as a test. That's my attitude to life. So when I'm davening mincha and the guy davening next to me is davening too loudly or whatever it is, rather than getting frustrated, I'm like, well, what's the test? That should be your first question that comes to mind when you get triggered by something. Take a deep breath. What's the test? What's being asked of me? How do I use this to become great? It's a very, very powerful tool to understand that everything is a test. Now this is, by the way, even if there's no God, an atheist should also approach life like this. But we believe, no, there is a God and there is a reason for that test. It's not just a random test. For an atheist, it's a random test, but it's a very positive attitude to say, well, it's a test and I'm going to use it to go stronger. For a Jew, that's one step, very good step, positive attitude towards my test. But we have a higher step, which is, no, this is exact, I'm going to embrace this. Not only am I going to deal with it, I'm actually going to embrace this because it's exactly what I need for my personal growth. So imagine that someone offers you your best job. It's your dream job and at ridiculous amounts of money. And they say, but the one thing is, you've got to get up early. We want to see you can get up early and that you don't get annoyed. And that's your two worst things. You get annoyed very easily and you hate getting up early. But then they say to you, look, we've got your dream job for $1 billion a year. But we're just going to check you for a week to see if you're good for the job. How would you get up that week? You'd be up in a second. And then someone would shout at you, you'd be like, fine. You'd miss the bus, you'd be like, so I'll walk today. Once you know you are being watched, and it is a test, and you value the job and the money enough, then you pass the test. Because you're like, I see it as a test. Like, bring it on now. Bring on the test. So I've got a much better reward for you than your dream job. And I'm not even talking religiously, the world to come and stuff. Just it's called self-esteem and happiness and a great life. I'm offering you that. So all you have to do, I have this thing in my home. It's a bit unfair. My kids are a bit small. What would you sell your happiness for? So you lost your toy, and you've got to be very careful with your children because you have to validate their emotions, and especially by age. But at some point when they're a bit older and they're like, why are you fighting over a cookie or whatever? It's like, are you actually willing to sell your happiness for a cookie? Crazy. I'm not selling my happiness for a cookie. So you see life as a test. Actually, there's a famous story in the Zohar. I'm going to tell it very quickly. There was a king, an amazing, righteous, amazing king, and he had a son, and he wanted the son to be the new king. But to be the new king, you have to have self-control. You have to live up to your values, and you have to understand the people. So he sent his son out into the town to go and live with the townspeople, to see what their life was and be attracted by all the stuff in the town. And he then hired a prostitute, most beautiful prostitute in the land, and said, go and test my son. I want you to go and test my son. And he knew his son could stand up to it, but the purpose of the prostitute was to make him stronger. So he was doing fine, and then he was getting a little bit weaker, and she kept coming to seduce him. So the king sent a messenger from the palace, and the messenger said, look, I just want you to know that the prostitute's working for your dad, and it's just a test. Now, as soon as he knows that, does it become easier or harder? Easier. Much easier. He knows it's a test now. So then it's not even a test. So our sages say the Yetzer Hara is the prostitute. Hashem sent the soul down into this world. That's the king sending the son out and to test, because I want the neshama to become great. But then I'm going to send the Yetzer Hara, the prostitute, seducing you. Hey, do this, smoke there, do that. But as soon as you know it's a test, it's like, no way, I'm just not going to. So now when my Yetzer Hara says stuff to me, I just laugh at it. I'm like, you really think I'm going to do that? Thanks for coming, man. But then it gets stronger and cleverer. And so it always goes stronger and stronger. The third method is my favorite one, and we'll talk about it a lot more next time we speak. I call it let it flow and let it go. Let it flow and let it go. So we're going to talk a lot about emotional balance, but in general, an emotion is different to a thought. Emotions don't have words for a start. Emotions are physical feeling. You can literally feel the energy. You can feel love. You can feel your heart beating. You can feel scared. You can feel it's actually when people get angry, you can feel it rising within you. Oh, you can feel it. So at that point, once you feel the emotion arise, you got three choices. Most people do the bad ones. Either try and repress it, not angry, it's fine, or they just let it overwhelm them and they build it. The third option is let it flow and let it go. Feel the energy come up. I'm angry, I'm frustrated. You saw that person who annoyed you. Feel the energy, but get ready for it, and then breathe deeply as it comes and literally let it flow. Now, how do you let it go? Very easy. We're going to talk about this a lot next time. Just don't think. Thinking is like putting wood on the fire. The emotion is a fire. thoughts are words. Why did they say that? Oh, how dare he? Do you know who I am? If only you're building the fire. Now you could put a blanket on the fire, repress the fire, but then there's little coals. It's going to come up again. Let it flow and let it go. Now it's going to work with the creator state. By the way, if you work on creator state and you see that person, maybe at first you're going to feel it. So, dude, let it flow and let it go, and then that's the highest way to really deal with an emotion in a emotionally healthy, balanced way. I'm not repressing the emotion, but I'm not building it. I'm not perpetuating it. I'm feeling it fully. Deep breath, feel it flow through me. Let it flow, let it go. Bam, come out, and then you can do the creative state. We're going to speak a lot more about that next time.